Hey artists, we are going to be creating a tree today. I'm going to use a white crayon on a dark colored neutral piece of paper. When we do this, if you want to do this in pencil, you're more than welcome, and then we'll trace it in white crayon. But I'm going to go for it. All right, we're going to just have some fun. We want to think about the tree. The trunk is going to be in the middle. The branches are going to move outward. The further you go away from the trunk of the tree, the smaller everything becomes. We're going to start with the very base of the tree. I'm going to start by drawing almost a rectangle or two lines, and then I'm going to draw the roots. Now, when you draw roots, you don't want to draw them a zigzag line or pumpkin teeth, because that's not how roots look like in nature. They swing outward as if they are going to go over a hill. They might have a curve to them, and then they go underneath the ground, all right? So you only need like 2 or 3. I wouldn't do any more. None straight down towards you, but just out towards the side. All right, we are going to move up the trunk. I'm going to go one side of my trunk at a time. Now, I feel about this height, there would be a nice branch. So I'm going to just take my crayon and move it off. And it's okay if it's not a perfectly straight line. There's not many trees out there that have the perfectly straight lines. And in fact, we're kind of drawing one of those old oaks, you know, the really giant old oak trees that you see in the park that would be perfect to put a tree house in. So I'm going to put one limb out to the right, and I'm going to do the top of the limb. So as you can see, I'm going to move my pencil and come on out. Then I'm going to break this up to even smaller branches. So it's almost a Y. And then I'm going to break this even into a smaller and thinner branch. Could do the same for up here. And as you can see, my crayon is kind of running into one another. Now, so I have my trunk, my limb, my branch. If I want to do some twigs, that's fine. Now, depending on the type of tree you're drawing, some of your twigs are parallel. Some of them alternate. As you can see, I'm kind of drawing alternating twigs. They're not parallel on my tree. All right, there is one branch. Now let's do that a few more times. I'm going to continue my trunk up, and I'm going to have it again go off to the right. This one I'm going to have it go straight a little bit. I'm going to break this into a V or a Y. And now from here, I'm going to make those smaller little areas. So I'm going off, opening it up, and then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to close kind of up my branch. Oop, I'm making this one smaller. The further you go away again from the trunk of your tree, the smaller your limbs and branches become. It's now time for my twigs. Go ahead and start your tree. All I'm going to do is I'm going to follow and feel out where my twigs should be. And it's okay if your branches overlap one another here and there. All right. Oh, right up on the top. See how they're overlapping? All right, now I'm going to come back in on my left side. I'm going to have it come up. I don't really want to break it apart all at the same area, so I'm going to break this one up a little bit higher. That means my trunk kind of goes up a little bit higher before I break it up into my limbs and into my smaller branches. Alternating my twigs. The last thing you want is it to look like fingers all busting up at the same level. You don't want any finger trees where all hands are at the same. All right, now that my tree is done, I have it drawn. I'm going to then split this up into different lines, kind of going where it splits and kind of bringing that down to the base. Now this technique I learned in high school and I still use it today because it gives that old oak even more of that ancient feeling. We're going to put on some contours. I'm going to take my crayon and I'm going to make some U shapes, or upside down U shapes, or ends, I guess, some curved lines from one side of my line to the other, working it back and forth. And when I get up to a branch, it's just going to split, follow its path all the way up, go back and finish the other side. I'm going to follow this path all the way up. I'm going to stay inside of my lines. I don't want my lines to go outside. All right, when I stop and start my U's or my ends, my curved lines, I want it to stay in between that line of my branch. I always love these trees in the fall because they become kind of spooky. Haunted, fall-like tree. There is my tree. Now very, very carefully, I'm going to be cutting this out. When I cut this, I'm going to go right on the outside. Now it is okay to leave a little bit of the gray. You do not need to cut directly on your tree. Now, I'm going to go back and cut that branch out smaller, but I'm going to cut around and take out my big areas first. All right, so I'm going to cut later on in that area. But like I said, I'm going to take out my big areas first by cutting close to the tree, but not on my lines. Now, I have some areas in here that I need to cut out that I could cut between these branches, or I might need to fold it a little, get my scissors on the inside. Just see how I sliced it, so I can slide my scissors on the inside, and then very nicely and neatly, I'm going to move the paper where you need to. Again, big areas first. I can go back in and clean it up in a moment. All right, to clean up some of these small areas, all I'm going to do is take my pair of scissors and I'm going to go back and forth, almost making little triangular cuts. So one up to the branch and around. Do you see how I'm doing this? I'm not trying to turn my scissors or to turn my paper always. I'm making two cuts from the outside of my paper to my tree. So I'm going up to the branch and this. This way you are more than less likely to cut off a branch. More than likely to keep all your branches, less likely to cut off a branch. Try to make your cuts smooth though. Take your time and cut out your tree. Alright, here's my tree all cut out. As you can see, I went around my branches, but I wasn't stressing to get super close. Just going in and out. Remember to fold and cut to get those individual openings out. Go all the way down and all around your tree. Don't forget to collect all of your pieces, big and small. Look on the floor, pick it all up, and put this in the recycling because the world is dirty enough.